Hello and greetings to all. As was promised, I'm going to be giving a run through of my book, Reconstructing a Brown Identity. It does have a bit of a glare, but if you're able to see this aspect of us that was for the most part dormant while we grew up, considering ourselves Hispanic, Latino, or other, is now awakened while the Spanish/European side is being put to sleep for the time being so that we can begin the arduous process of cultural exploration. Now, this book was published through Floricanto Press. Please check out their wide variety of books from LGBT to other diverse topics, including my own of decolonizing. The back part of the book does have a photo of yours truly when I visited the beautiful city of Dallas, Texas, the description of the book, and some information concerning myself. Now, to give a little background information, I began working on this book in 2011. I was beginning to study a lot, read a lot, learn a lot, and I was also going to college back then. So I was able to digest all this wonderful information and metabolize it by creating a series of essays, which I was able to organize into one cohesive work, um, placing them into different chapters. Um, Now, the first part of the book is a foreword, which chronicles pretty much my journey of self discovery. Um, Back when I was going to school at our particular high school, Mexicans, other members of Hispanic origin, a handful of Native Americans and whatnot, we were pretty much the minority. The larger groups were Caucasian and African Americans. Particularly with African Americans, there were quite a number of clashes between Mexicans and African Americans, numerous fights. We did feel the resentment of that particular group as well as of Caucasians. Therefore, a lot of us were led into embracing our Mexican roots. Myself, because of the media, back then, the Latin explosion, I believe it was called, with artists that were at one point Latino, now crossing over in the likes of Ricky Martin, Jennifer Lopez, Mark Anthony, and a handful of other artists. You know, these songs often featured instrumentals which were new to mainstream America. They featured the Spanish language, you know, people who look more like us due to the fact that they're what you would normally call a mestizo. And all the while that you're seeing yourself somehow represented by these artists, you're coming to terms with the fact that you're Mexican, Mexican American specifically. Growing up, my parents rented movies with very strong, cholo gang content, which we didn't really get to watch until later. I wonder what that movie was about. American Me, Blood In, Blood Out, 187, Colors, Mi Vida Loca. American Me, particularly, and I do speak about it in the book. The opening scene is depicting the Zoot Suit riots, wherein U.S. service members brutalized Mexican American youth. The main character's mother is raped, and he's pretty much the product of rape. Growing up, seeing himself as half white and half Mexican, despised by his Mexican American stepfather, so to speak. And that is pretty much more or less what I was beginning to see myself as. Not really white, not really brown, but somehow in the oblivious in between. So come to terms with the fact that you're not Latino, you're Mexican. Well, you're not really Mexican since you were never born in Mexico and never lived in Mexico. So you're a Chicano, you're Mexican American. We'll also have some Native American heritage, which doesn't really play in very well because as a Hispanic or Latino, we're constantly seeking to be whiter. We're constantly seeking to praise that Spanish great grandfather and whatnot. So what am I then? Well, you come to terms with the fact that you are an indigenous Chicano, but there's still a sea of separation between yourself and the other peoples of America, the other brown peoples of America, which can be bridged by realizing that you're but one of many other original inhabitants divided into nations, tribes, bands, and clans throughout the continent and the hemisphere at large, and even the world at large, if we seek to view it that way. The very first chapter is titled The Mestizo Curse, which is a bit of a dramatic, harsh title, but it really goes into dismantling the myth of mestizaje, which seeks to have us view ourselves as half of this and half of that, dehumanizing by robbing us of being wholesomely one unit, one individual. I am going to keep this video short and sweet, and I will continue the discussion of my book, Reconstructing a Brown Identity, which can be purchased directly through Floricanto, latinobooks.net, or through major book distributors, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, and whatnot. So I hope to speak to y'all soon, and stay tuned.